Hello, everybody. Hello to John. So in this conversation today, I'm with John Wolfstone, and we're going to talk. We're not even actually all that sure exactly what we're going to talk about, which is kind of beautiful. But I invited John to be a part of this symposium because he does some really some work in the world that touches me on very deep levels, and I honestly just want to have a conversation with him, with you, and about your sense of what is happening on this planet, what is going on with the healing of our planet in general, and specifically with regard to the masculine and the feminine, and so many things. And so what we've agreed is that we're just gonna be with our hearts and see what's meant to come through the two of us together here. And I'm just so grateful that you're here. Thank you for being a part of this.
Yeah, grateful to be here.
So before we start, I'm going to all right, so before we begin, I'm gonna read your bio. So John is a third generation settler on the land
I'm currently on the unceded ancestral homelands of the Quw'utsun and W SÁNEĆ peoples up here in a place now known as Salt Spring Island, British Columbia.
You're in Salt Spring Island? I did not realize that. Yeah. I love Salt Spring.
Beautiful place.
It is magic. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, there we go. There's no whole other topic. But so John's blood and bones hold Hebraic, Norse, and Celtic ancestry, and his spirit is from the stars. Very similar to me. As a wilderness rites-of-passage guide, ritualist, community consultant, relationship coach, and transmedia storyteller, John is on a mission to what? Oh, wait, oh my goodness. What is this word? R-E-C-L-A-M-A-T-E.
Reclamate.
Reclamate. Okay, what does that mean?
Reclamate, like reclaim.
Reclaim. Okay. Is on a mission to reclamate adulthood initiation rites of passage. Holding space for the great grief of our times, John designs and facilitates rituals and transformation in service to regulating the personal and collective nervous systems. This part gets to me. Oh my God, this is so, yes. In service to regulating the personal and collective nervous systems back to belonging with the earth. That is so precisely what the spirit world shows me, tells me, has me convey it. Anyway, I can feel that on so many levels. Beautiful. John apprenticed in numerous indigenous and ancestral ritual healing lineages during his decade-long adulthood initiation quest and bows in reverence to his many teachers, mentors, guides, and elders. John tends thresholds of all kinds and can often be found praying by a fire, whistling bird song, invoking his ancestors, and training his craft as a sacred huntsman. Thank you. Yeah, so a minute ago, I paused because there was a big black spider crawling across the blanket on my lap here, and I freaked out for a second. And then John said, wait, no, that spirit of the spider wanted to be here. And I've sat in this chair so many times. I have never had a spider crawl across my lap, ever. So when you said that, I went, yeah, thank you. So I would love to just sit for a minute here together and let that spider energy weave what it wants into this conversation or presence. Okay.
Yeah, I can actually speak a bit about how spider weaves for me.
Oh, I would love that. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, like you, I think like most humans, I'm afraid. There is fear in me about spiders. There is a knee-jerk, ancestrally deep fear of spiders. Um, have many freakouts, right? And that's the quick dysregulation of my nervous system, and then often moving towards a violent action
Mm.
in the past. And yet spiders come to me a lot this past year. And recently I was on a vision fast. I was dieting rose, the like rose, beautiful flower. And there's one point when I was like connecting with the rose, and I really was connecting deeply with the goddess, which I can share more about. At some point, the way that your eyes can focus, near and far, all of a sudden my eyes really focused in, and like a few feet in front of my face, sitting in front of the altar I was praying at out in the woods, was this little spider just like weaving its web. And I was just entranced. It is the most graceful, delicate, beautiful, like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. And I really realized the spider as grandmother and as another aspect of the goddess. And I really think there's a big teaching from spider about fear. As like the current edge, like I often ask people that I work with, because I'm somebody, as you read in my bio, that does a lot of ritual. And ritual for me is like a really fundamental technology of healing and reunion. And often when I do ritual, it's really, for me, good ritual is rooted in what is the trouble that the ritual is trying to heal, because that constellates the arc. That in some ways what like weaves the web of the ritual. And the trouble I've been really with has been like really facing this deep fear, this like anxious terror that lives at the core of my like ancestral trauma in my being, that for years I've been excavating. And I was telling you before we got on this, just I'm 6 months out of a really immense breakup, totally heart smashed, totally broken, the closest I've ever been to suicide. Like all my dreams gone. And why that happened is because at some level I was using my partner to compensate for really facing this deepest place of like fear in me, which isn't even mine. It's my ancestors' fear of all the exile and uprooting and everything else that all, most of us on planet Earth now have had, especially people that look like us, whose ancestors were running from something in Europe when they came here. And how that story went with what they brought here, of that fear. And what I've been finding is that, in a world that we, now know as like the patriarchal world, that mechanism of patriarchy is really about control as a way to manage fear. And obviously that's not working. And what's underneath the fear is uncertainty. And what I've been, even as we were talking previous to this, we're like, oh, we're not really sure what we're going to talk about. What I've been seeing is the most important skill of our time, which is what good ritual is it's that ability to really be with the uncertainty and let that fertile ground of the unknown, of the dark, partner with us and birth us. That is the realm to me of the goddess. And that is the realm of also the spider. It's not necessarily lunging out to go and hunt. It is like creating a web of possibility, and it's creating a web of its like willingness to receive and like string out prayers and then catch what comes. And that's just a very different orientation to be with the world right now and be with fear than the like lunging out towards it and like trying to control. So spider's been a big teacher for me, as I'm in a moment of my life of having to surrender again and again and again, control again and again and again until there's a different way. And as that happens, I'm starting to see spiders and be excited. And even that like super bone deep knee-jerk reaction is shifting, because I'm starting to see them as kin or as friends somehow, you know, as this has been integrating. And I'm hoping to keep doing that with other areas of my life where there's really deep pain and fear that just so quickly comes, you know, and then that can be the program that I run. And then, you know, all the harm that comes from that running fear unconsciously in the world. So thank you, Spider.
Yeah, really, thank you.
Bringing yourself in.
That helped me just drop into like the web of everything, that we're all connected, you know, that we're all of the above. Yeah. Thank you for redirecting so we could be in this place. The question on my heart for you right this minute is, how did you, like before we started talking, you said that you feel like something like you feel like a huge part of your work in the world, you can correct me, you know, use your own words for this, but something like your work in the world has to do with the healing of the masculine and feminine. So I'd be curious for you to rephrase whatever that truth is for you, and then also just say more about that, like why and how did that, why do you feel that way? Why do you feel called, or how do you feel called, or anything you want to share about your story with that?
Yeah, well, as I'm currently in this acute moment of grief around like broken love and unrequited love, I can say in some ways that is the grief I've carried my whole life, going back to my own mother, is this unrequited love. And I look at human history, and that's what I see: the grief, the pain of unrequited love. And you know, as somebody starting like, you know, late high school, early college, like most of us like kind of started to wake up to like, oh, this isn't the story I was told. The world's actually like really fucked up and really in a lot of pain. And for me, that like, well, what are we going to do about it? How do we help? Like, oh my God, there's like a, you know, and the whole, like, there's a paradigm shift happening, but but how do we help it to happen? And can it happen? And what does that even mean? Like this whole, that's become the world. You know, I think we share, and people listening probably share, of like being part of some great turning at like the deepest level of our culture and cosmology and like relationship to everything. And in that, I'm somebody that for years has been moved and studied. I've been doing a film about a community in Portugal and really moved by this idea of community, that, you know, we ancestrally all come from a place of village. And that's ultimately where I feel like humanity's headed back towards. That's the way humans just socially organize on planet Earth, into like patterns of belonging, of kinship. And in my many failures of trying to build community, which is pretty much ubiquitous, everyone's failed. It's the hardest thing in the world because it touches the core of like our trauma. What I've realized is actually maybe community is a side effect of something else, and more important than community is actually building culture again. Like, and what is culture?
Yeah, what is culture? Exactly.
That's
There you
it.
go.
What is culture, and what is this, you know, kind of way, this pattern of humans relating to the earth is really what culture is, and each other. The ways that we partner in this dance of life and death with the earth, and kind of form patterns that help support that. And you could say at the core of culture, I found, and the core of, biological human life, is this interplay of the masculine and feminine, is this interplay of a certain polarity, that gives rise to all of creation. So in my studies of rebuilding human culture, because in this moment when so much is broken, what I've realized is, like, we have to go back to the fundamental roots. And culture, at some level, if the process of humans making babies is life going on, like that's how more human beings come into the world, culture fundamentally was, how is that protected and like supported? Because culture is about how life can keep sustaining. And of course, well, in that, clear example in all of the world, it's a union of the masculine and feminine that makes that happen. And that's not just biological. Something my Indigenous teacher that I've done a lot of ceremony with, Archon Lushwala, said is that every temple, every ancient temple, especially on planet Earth, if you really learn to perceive it, you'll see it is a union of the masculine and feminine. And every culture understood at the sacred core that what is sacred about the world is this union of the masculine and feminine, is Father Sky and Mother Earth meeting. Because it's not just in human beings. It's that rain hitting the fertile earth, being inseminated with that, and then inseminated again with the sun. That's what makes this garden grow. It's these forces. And so if we live now in a world that's very broken, and I live currently in a brokenness outerly of the inability to have a woman close to me, and me to have her, and her to have me close. It's a manifestation of that core brokenness, which is everywhere right now, which is the brokenness also in me, of my own ability to have the feminine in me close to my masculine. There's all these levels, and you can't really isolate any of them, but they all matter. So at some level, all the work I do spirals back into, like, how can this love story actually work out on planet Earth, which is, I think, the ultimate teacher. Like, the earth is the original elder. And then stories, old stories, like fairy tales, folk tales, are pretty good elders. I do a lot of work with myth and story. Ancestors are good elders in this work. They all kept life going somehow. Indigenous folk are pretty good elders in this. And then the work now on the ground of, like, well, what is broken, why, and how do we heal that? And as you said in my bio, the key cultural piece I think I want people to walk with, that's a dedication that I received as my life's work from doing a lot of initiatory endeavors, which was me really surrendering to death. And that death life principle is that all ancient cultures understood that practically, for men and women to meet, and for the masculine and feminine to meet in a person, that was a initiatory process. Because ultimately, in our adolescence, we form very healthily, very necessarily good ego, but that has to kind of be broken open, like a seed being open to then sprout, through a initiatory process where you really encounter death, and you really can then face the, like, opposite side in yourself and, like, integrate that. And that was at the core of what cultures were and protected. People right now are talking a lot about mystery schools, which I've been a part of a few, and like currently in one that is you know, unfolding through me and some others. Mystery school is about initiation into the mysteries, and there's no greater mystery than how each of us are both masculine and feminine, that how we are both yin and yang. It's that paradox, because they are completely, in some ways, antithetical, but yet the union of them creates all life. So for me, my work in many ways is dedicated to like, what is the ritual and what is the cultural containers that allow these initiatory processes to happen, both personally and collectively. And that's what I realized, like, oh, the missing piece in all this like community building work is community will come from initiated people that actually had enough inner capacity and resilience and connection to all of life, right? Because you also get initiated into that bigger conversation with the world. And your realization, as you were telling me about you being a channel, that like it's all a channel. Like, you know, none of my gifts are mine. They come from my wild genius. And but that's been a huge death and rebirth process again and again. And so I'm here to help create that container, those chrysalises, you know, those cocoons for others to have those death and rebirth processes, which is like, you know, I think Clarissa Pinkola Estes says this in Women Who Runneth the Wolves. It's about having a heart that has been like broken and rebroken again and again and again. So in some ways, if the biggest arc of this whole moment we're in is this like unrecorded love story that's underneath the surface, the path to healing it is to go into that broken heart again and again and again, and let our hearts break again and again and again, but never give up on love. And that's the moment I'm personally in. Like, my heart is so broken. I was engaged to be married, and now I'm not. And yet I still, and maybe it's only going to be my grandkids or like, you know, kin that might even be through my blood, even letting go of that. But like, that will have that possibility of that like love that I think we came here on earth to experience. So like, in a way, that's why this work is important. And I'm seeing it at all these levels and working at it at all these levels. And it comes down often to like ritual, you know, and culture in these ways.
Yeah, there's this on the other day, I was recording another one of these talks with a woman who, she played a song at the end of her talk, and it's been in my head all weekend, like this whole past couple days since then. And I woke up this morning and it was still in my head, and so I decided to sing it out loud into a recording. And I, for some reason, hearing myself singing it, I just started bawling. Like, I couldn't stop crying. And what the words are, I'm gonna start crying, oh my God. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone something like not notice that your love is like a miracle? How could anyone something, anyway, the idea being like, it sums up everything. Like, we are whole, we are beautiful on this infinite level. That's the ultimate reality of ourselves. And yet on this planet Earth, we feel so broken, you know. And so when I was like sobbing, it was this feeling of like sobbing for the collective. I just felt so sad that all of us, including myself, have felt not perfect for most of our lives, or maybe all of our lives, or whatever. And it's so deeply sad because it's so not true, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think The thing is, though, the way it can't be like a personal psychological journey to find that wholeness or that okayness, as far as I've experienced. It's a part of the brokenness of this time is the interiorization of us, when it's like indigenous folks and our ancestors that were connected is like they were just in conversation with everything all the time, nature, spiritual. And in my own recent journey of big brokenness, like, because the thing is, I lived in a situation with a partner. She could not uh recognize me and my love. Like, a lot of my relationship was me, and I think this is a common story in relationships for pride men and women, where I was like giving all this love and she couldn't fucking receive it. But wait, whoa. That's not her fault necessarily. Wait, so like, it's really easy to be like, she couldn't receive my love. But like, okay, that's like layer one. And that still is the conflict. Pulling that apart a bit, as a man that just, especially, you know, in like wave one, whatever, like men trying to like heal patriarchy, it's like, I just want to give all this to the feminine. But what it wasn't seen is like the weight of the historical trauma in her is that she doesn't fucking trust men. And men have been also dominating with space and energy and plans and directives. And that is really a big journey she needs of her sovereignty, that she needs space for.
Mhm.
And that, for me, I was not giving that space. And I was like, why don't you? And I just wanted to love her, but there was still, actually, it wasn't really love. There was a selfishness, because I was trying to get,
Yeah.
I was trying to love her to be validated myself.
Yeah.
And actually, at a deeper level, the only place I can, not that I need it from humans, I need it from the earth, but it has to actually start not just with myself, because I don't think it's I can't really validate only myself, or like, the reason I feel validated right now in myself is because I had an encounter with the goddess, you
Mm.
know, and the godhead too, you know, but like, and that's the place where I got ultimately forgiven. And I ultimately also found my devotion. I was trying to make my devotion to a human woman.
Right.
And I want to be in a relationship where I'm devoted, but like my ultimate devotion is to the god and goddess. And right now it's really more to the goddess, because that's what's needed and what's being asked for.
Mm.
And but that's an important point, because the initiatory process is one born of, the key is for me is that we have to go into the underworld. We have to go into the dark to come to that place of like divine surrender. Like, divine has to bring us to our knees in order to really accept him and her and them in. And that's the key thing, because as a culture, we're so afraid of the dark. But if we talk about the goddess, she's the realm of the dark. The goddess is the night. The masculine is the day. And the goddess, the dark, the death, is the fertile ground where life starts. And we as a culture are death phobic and disconnected from that death principle. So in some ways, true love in a human sense is realizing what you love is going to die, and are you.
Mhm.
So you cannot grasp onto it as if it is divinity or salvation. So in some ways, I think the biggest thing we can do that's helpful is not to see the divine in the people we like love, but like see their humanness and their like mortality.
Mm.
And because I think the wound of patriarchy, and this is what I really learned from Tamara, coming from men, is not male domination and suppression of the feminine or women. It is men trying to feed off women for their divinity, as that divine source, as that divine mother, from the disconnect to that mother that is the earth, that is the goddess, that is the feminine in our own bodies, actually. So for me as a man, the deepest like decolonizing healing work is connecting to my own body, my own sensuality, my
Mm.
own sense of self and pleasure, and then that with the earth and nature and the goddess. And then I can hold space for human women
Mm.
and men and everything else. But it's like I'm not trying to get source energy from them. And that, I think that's not often seen in all this conversation around patriarchy and feminism and whatever all the right woke things are at this moment. It's like, oh, men need to take responsibility for finding that like goddess within them and stop trying to get that from human women.
Mhm.
And that to me is what initiatory process does, especially for men. And for women, it's the same thing in reverse. Like, don't try to make, men your god. Like,
Right.
find that in the world. And
Yeah.
then we can come together as beings that can love, but don't need each other codependently. Because that like codependence wound, it's everywhere, and it's so deep, and it's so insidious, and it's so precious. But it's not going to work if we keep doing that dance.
Totally. Yeah. You sound like you're I'm just gonna take a guess, but you sound like you're going through a Pluto transit right now. Just speaking as from my astrologer mind.
Great.
I
Well,
would not be surprised.
I'd love to find out. Sure I am. I know that in Vedic astrology, what is I don't know much about Vedic astrology, but there's like one planet or thing called Rahu that is like this really epic, like, and it's like a long cycle. It's like 20 years, but I'm like just at the cusp, like this next year, like this year, I'm finishing it.
Okay. Yeah.
After
I
like,
don't know.
I don't know,
I don't
but
know.
it's like, but it sounds to me that there's like, whatever I imagine Pluto to be is similar to its energies. I know Pluto, it's the farthest planet, so it has like a very long arc.
Yeah.
I'm not
Pluto
sure for transits, but it's like it's big.
has to do with the underworld. Everything you were describing is very Plutonian, like Ari Moshe Wolf, right?
Yeah.
So he's my main astrology teacher, and one things he says is with regard to relationships is, especially like Pluto with regard to relationships, is it's all gonna be gone. Like you meet someone one way or another, you're gonna be back with yourself. You start with yourself, you meet somebody, you're going to be back to yourself. Like someday it's going to happen. And I would say my addition to his way of putting it is actually, well, we start with ourselves as part of the one. And then we meet somebody and we're inevitably going to be back to feeling we're back to ourselves, but actually we are still part of the one. So in a sense, they always go away and they also never go away, if that makes sense. But Ari's big push, like to me personally, over the past few years has been similar to what you're saying. I was just having a major Pluto transit to my Venus. And anyway, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. But don't get attached.
When I think that, and I think what I mean for me by like my encounter with the goddess as a man, and what I want, say like I'm focused right now on men's work, because I feel like that's who I need to take the responsibility and leadership for, because I'm in a male body and there's a lot of work there, right? And I feel like, something else I want to weave in, drawing in spider. But when I met my ex, when I met this glorious, amazing woman, she's so awesome. Love you, Larissa out there. You are amazing, and I honor you. It was like finding, this mirror of me as the one, but the trap, and what I'm saying in my still not quite initiated adolescent psychological cultural state, it was like the grabbing on to, this is how I experience that oneness, versus like, oh, this is an activation, and actually I'm keeping doing the work that oneness is in everything. Yeah. And I need to find the continual sensual embodied relational dance to that divinity, that source that's in everything. And what happens, this is baseline how we do partnership in our broken world. We mistake that, we like myopically like telescope this person as our chance to experience union.
Yeah.
And it's like, that will never work. That's so much pressure, and it's actually going to suck them dry, and ourselves. And so what I'm learning in myself and what I'm teaching, which again, this has to be experienced through like ritual and all these other things and holding. And the other side of it is, there's this old story I love called The Handless Maiden. And I'm really into stories. You've maybe heard it. And a baseline of that story, it's like it's this love story. And this man and woman, they come together and they like meet and they fall in love, and then shit happens and they're apart. The woman doesn't have hands, part of the backstory. But when they like go apart, which is, I could say now, kind of like my story. I met this woman, we almost got married, but boom, now we're apart. The man and women both have to wander in this forest, which is the like underworld, for 7 years. And what they find in the forest is a hut. The man finds a hut of men, woman finds a hut of women, and these are the Wood sisters and the Wood brothers. And it's like a raucous, revelous group of people, of men and women, that are living in spirit with each other and with nature. And it's essentially a like initiatory house of brotherhood and sisterhood. And the woman in that hut grows her hands back, and the man like heals his heart. And it's where they really become initiated by a group of women and men, by crones and mothers and like elders and, you know, like men. And then they can come together for a real sacred marriage.
Yes.
And so that, for me right now, like, I think at the moment of this bigger men's women's work, I don't think we're yet at the moment of men and women really coming together. I think it's actually more work, higher, like I've done a lot of like men's work 1.0 and even women's work 1.0 is pretty shallow. We need like deep ritual men's work, deep ritual women's work. We need initiatory men's and women's work. And then we can come together. And for that, we got to find our Wood brothers and our Wood sisters. I also want to say everything I'm saying is very like, there's a cisgenderedness to it, and I recognize that, and it's a ongoing question.
And heterocentric.
Totally.
Yeah.
And though I am not part of the camp of throwing that out in the name of like, I think I'm in my own inquiry, because there is another space. And I find that in traditional cultures, there's more of a willingness to not collapse those two spaces, but have the ability for people to dance from those spaces if they want to. Or like, almost what I actually really understand is that people that dance in between are more like shamans, and they're on their own like track in like the shaman house, and they're like deeply downloading the like really dancing that integration dance, which is a walker of worlds and a weaver of these two webs in like a whole nother deep way. That's what I understand traditionally. I don't know what that means in this time, but like, that's what I understood in my research. Often this was like more ancestrally or indigenously empowered as. So with all of that, that's kind of where I see the work I'm doing and how it fits in, and, you know, how I want to dance with others.
Well, I can also just say from my own personal experience, I last year went deep inside and did my own, like really deep work, finding my own feminine, my own masculine, and then helping the two come together, like back into union and to my own inner sacred marriage. I did that whole thing, and not surprisingly, what happened, like literally within days after I did that, is I met someone who actually turned out to be a transgender woman, who precisely, like, we felt so deeply in love, like massively in love, the most beautiful love that I have experienced, I don't know, maybe ever, right? And she is a transgender woman, and this love exactly mirrored my inner feminine masculine love that was coming together in myself. So I saw firsthand that it absolutely does not need to be a heterosexual thing to be relevant to my inner dance of the masculine and feminine, and for various reasons that that relationship couldn't stick around, but the love never went away. And then I've done deeper work, similar to the Handmaid's Tale story. Yeah. And And I then fell in love with a man who is like that same, it's that same quality of love, but like at the mature level, like at the sustainable, you know, like could actually really stick around as a real thing kind of relationship. But the quality of the love, the quality of the purity of the intensity of love is identical. It's so bizarre. It's like she was the precursor to this, and me, like I've been that handmaid or whatever, handmaid. How do you say that? The
Handless
woman,
maiden.
handless maiden, that thing, in various forms, you know, throughout my life, right? And
yeah,
so like now I'm 45, like I'm as mature as I've ever been in this lifetime. I have lots of years to go, but like now the love that I'm in right now is, you know, that to me feels like I've done initiate, not only with that situation with the transgender woman last summer, but other things too. I feel like I've been initiated, and this thing that is in my life now is this totally different world. It's like a completely other thing. But yeah, it feels like he and I both have gone through that initiatory thing and are in this place where we can meet as sovereign people who know our sovereign nature and like have embodied our sovereignty, you know, and our own inner masculine healing. Not like perfect, but anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think part of one, hallelujah, just like, fuck,
Yeah.
you know, thanks for, you know, because I'm in a moment, I'm like, I'm not giving up on love, but it's like, it's a like spider web thin strand that I believe it's possible, you know, but that's enough. And spider webs are very strong. It's like that's the amazing, they are 1,000 times like stronger than steel. Like this amazing feat of nature, this organic thing that is like, anyways, what really the deepest learning in me is like, yeah, it's initiation, why this is different than healing. And where, like, for me, even the modern framing on healing in like the modern therapeutic context is not working, is that like, it doesn't mean you're not still broken. Like for me, the deepest place of this like actually rootedness where I can serve life and meet a woman or a man or whatever and like be in a relationship is where I've just accepted my brokenness. Because the ultimate brokenness is thinking there's something wrong with being broken. And actually, it's my brokenness that feeds the world. It's my wound that creates the gift and creates a place where I need others. If I wasn't broken, I would just be a like astral light being that wouldn't be on Earth, right? Like part of being human, the human condition is to have trouble. And it's our trouble that's what creates all the beautiful flowering of the world. So I can be like, hey, Martha, come help me. My heart's hurting. And then you have a purpose and are acting, et cetera, all over, you know, which is like why Indigenous folks often will create their houses not with the most sturdy materials, but with with like roofs that are going to leak in a year or two, so they can call all their neighbors in to then repatch the roof. But as they're repatching the roof, they're repatching their bonds of communities. So it's like, it's holding, I think that process of initiation is like ritually holding our wounds up, you know, to the heavens and to the earth and blessing them as holy. Like that is, for me, it's not fixing them. It's just being like, hey, this too is holy. These broken parts, you know, maybe you could say it differently. What I've also come to in like a modern psychological sense, it's like really about parts work or like internal family systems. In that, it's like what I've done the past 6 months in my deep initiatory brokenhearted journey is like lift up all these outcast parts of self, like really little hurt Johnny, little one who I was not paying attention to and trying to get my girlfriend to solve or hold, and be like, oh, bud, I see you. I'm holding you. I hear. And that one, and like see the like teenage one in me that hates that little one. And I'd be like, bud, I love you too. And like, I got you. And like, how about I maybe give you a different role than trying to be like mean to this little one, but I see that you're trying to actually like protect, etc. Like it's that deep work of all these parts of self, bringing them back from exile, which I think is that healing work. And it's not like the place in me that is reactionary and is wounded, it's not necessarily ever going to go away. I just learned to relate to it differently and give it a bit more space and care and love and boundaries, right? Like part of me develop, and actually, you know, people often equate boundaries with the masculine, but from my journey with Rose last week, like roses have, you know, they're known for the thorns as well. The goddess has got pretty good. I don't know a better teacher of boundaries than like Mama Bear. You know,
Yeah.
Mama Bear and like mother, actually healthy mother has, it's only the wounded mother that doesn't have good boundaries. Healthy mother is fucking spiky when she like needs to be. So it's like
Yeah.
that need to be boundaried is both a masculine and feminine thing, and they come in different ways, but they're both necessary. So, you know, it's a really interesting dance, this like journey of finding that wholeness, because wholeness is an ever becoming more journey. It's not a complete state that we get to. And now we're like, until we die, we're going to be on a learning curve and a journey of wholeness. And yeah, so for me, I've more just like broken enough to accept that, and that it's not about getting my like dreams. It's about being curious and like accepting and blessed with all that's here right now.
Yeah.
You know, again and again.
And that feels so parallel to our world. Obviously,
Yeah.
right? Like I said to you before we started recording, one of the things I find beautiful about what's going on for you, I mean, it sounds really hard and really heartbreaking and terrible on one level, and then at the same time you are being with it, and you are holding space for this deep work in the world, even though you're not perfect, and none of us is perfect. And like, so when I think about the state of our world right now, and the state of the fact that we all feel so upset about the negative effects of patriarchy on every level, like the violence, the war, the racism, the homophobia, the everything that's coming with this sick system that we've had for so many, so many centuries and whatever. We are in a broken time. Like, it's absolutely broken. It's not good. It's not okay. And when we sit with what is ours to do, and like you said, how do we heal this? Maybe we don't need a goal for it to be perfect. Like, maybe the goal is just being here. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the brokenness in ourselves mirroring the brokenness in the world is not fixed because we are trying to fix it. That is the key thing of patriarchy, is like trying to fix.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like I think every woman could probably say like men suck when they're trying to fix her when she's having feelings, because it's like, oh, and the healing with my feminine and masculine is being with the feelings, being with and giving space to it. And I say, a teacher of mine says, the sound of waking up in a troubled time like this is not a hallelujah or an amen. It is a sob. And
Wow.
right now, we cannot know how to address and heal or whatever the brokenness which is heftier and heftier by the moment.
Yeah.
All we can know is the best next step, and the best next step is pretty much to like grieve a lot.
Yeah.
And I trust if we really be with that broken heart, I think that's like when somebody's in grief, when I've been in grief, and it's very few people that I've learned have the inner capacity that have touched that in themselves that can meet me. When my mom died in this breakup, people try to fix, or they tune out, they disassociate. And I've been tuning in to my grief, and the people that help me are people that can go there with me and be like, I feel it and I know it and I'm sobbing with you. And that's what the earth wants. This climate change and all the things. She's got a fucking broken heart, and she's pissed, and she's all the things. And what she wants more than anything than us to reduce carbon emissions or recycle better, like, sure, she wants us to be with that broken heart, by
Mhm.
being with that in ourselves and grieving with her.
Yeah.
And then I think something new, like if you're with two people in a conflict, say there's a conflict between me and my ex, or men and women, or masculine and feminine, the place that's healed is by you both grieving together the pain of that conflict,
Oh my God.
not by like accusing or who's right and who's wrong, or like, or let's do some feigned apology. It's like,
Yeah.
let's just be in the grief that this is fucking broken, and that's hard and we don't know. And from that grief cry, that is our prayer to the
Mm.
god and goddess to like help.
Mm. Oh my God. There we go. Oh wow. The grief cry. Yep. Hmm. Oh my God. Okay. Right. Yes. That's where I was this morning in my bed sobbing with that song. That's exactly it. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, a question that comes to me, which is such a hard question I'm with, so I can share some of my wondering. I'm curious how you share it. I mean, it's, you have a relationship right now, I'm hearing. So I'm really struggling. And I've been doing this work for 7 years, like with Tamaris deeply. Like the hardest part of being with the goddess in me is I'm really having struggles as a man being with my sexuality. Because I, so much of my life was like trying, pushing, trying to meet my sexual needs from a wounded place and from a place of like trying to find that like union. And
Mm.
what's been healing the past 6 months is like a lot of time with men, letting go. I've not been sexual since my uh partnership, and it's like almost a part of me that's been necessarily put aside and compartmentalized, and it's been like, oh, thank god. Like it's almost a sense of me like this is a burden, like my sexuality is a burden, and I'm like really enjoying life without it. I mean, and not that I feel erotically alive often, like sensually and with nature, and that is for me the path, but it's like there's so much brokenness in our world around it, and I just don't know as a man, sort of authentically I can and am turned on, by life, by female body folk often, and I'm just still this like I don't really know how to do with this, and I don't know where to lean into it. I don't know when to lean into it. And even with myself, like the thing is so deep from I think colonization and Christianity and porn that like even self-pleasuring I feel confused about. And I feel often, and there's so many schools of thought. Some thought are like, well, don't ever as a man like, you know, let your like seed go because that's losing life force. And there's all these things that I'm like, so many thoughts about it, and like I don't really know what is, because it feels like a switch I can kind of turn on and off, and it's just so fundamental to being human, but so harmful. And there's been so much pain in my life when I do turn it on, and I
Mm.
and I and I know for sure I can't just like suppress it. Like I've learned that one pretty loud and clear, but
Yeah.
just that's a question I want to give to also all people right now, men and women and everything else. Like I need help. Like I do not know exactly the best way to dance with that energy as somebody that's done that work for years now,
Right.
still.
I,
So
I love that you voiced that question because that's such a vulnerable question. And, I think that's probably a question most humans have, or if they don't consciously have it, it's in there somewhere. And especially when we're trying to heal again the wounds of the patriarchy, yeah, where the sexuality of men in particular has been so well, sexuality for anybody of any gender is confusing, but if you've been raised as a boy and a man, uh yeah, there's all these messages about it being dangerous and scary and out of control and all of that. I don't know that no answer is coming to me. I just think part of the answer is kind of what we said before. Like, I love that you're even being with the question.
Mm.
Yeah. And so
Thank
much
you.
healing is needed with all of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel my personally, I feel in a pretty good place with all of that right now, but I've done a lot of work as someone who identifies as a woman,
Mm.
like coming into my own sexual energy in a way that is self-contained. Like
Mm.
again, a year ago, I did this really, really, really deep work with not only with my feminine and masculine, but also with my sexual life force energy. So a lot
Mm.
of that work was about consciously knowing that life force energy is all of life. Like the stars
Yes.
are sexual, like in a sense, right?
Mm.
Source is like a big ball of life force energy. That's all it is. And so every one of our cells is the spark of sexuality. So for me, just really working with that reality in myself and allowing
Mm.
the energetics consciously to flow. It comes back to what we were saying about not looking to the other person,
Mm.
another human, to give you the energy you're wanting, or like to give you the divinity that you're looking to connect with. I had a parallel experience with that with my sexual energy also, was that when I found the feminine and masculine in me, it helped me to feel whole in who I am. So I'm not looking outside of myself to fill the void of the masculine in me, or the void or whatever. And similarly, when I was able to work with the life force energy, which is also sexual energy in my body,
Mm.
and let it flow like this. I keep doing this motion, but that's how I feel it. It's like it becomes like a toroidal field, or it just
Yeah.
circulates, you know. And
Yeah.
so I'm like a whole being in myself. And then when I choose to meet another person with sexual energy, it's not coming from like a seeking, it's coming from a celebration, kind of more of a feeling.
Mm. Right. And I feel that for me in some ways, the path, what I've been seeing for me is around art. Because I think art
Oh,
is the expression of that life force energy. And that's what I'm actually longing for. I think more than being sexual is actually, it's like I'm longing to be fully expressed as a human being in my song, in my dance, in my spirit, in my play. And how much do I self-edit? Because I'm afraid of fitting in still at some level. And there's also a place in me where I've had a lot of wounding around my own capacity to be disciplined, which I'm now changing to be more like a devotion or devotional to my craft. And I'm really wanting to, like, for the sake of the goddess and the god, but it helps me to have this thing. I'm like, because for me, it's like, oh, I could be really devotional to human women, but again, that's a little mixed up. But if I'm like, I want to make my craft really beautiful so I can sing a song in devotion to the goddess, ooh, like I get some force, I get some fire in me. And it's that willingness to even hone, because I think the ultimate role of human beings is to feed life at a cultural level through beauty. And
mm,
it's that courtship between the masculine and feminine, and the beauty it creates, not for each other, but for the culture. That
mm.
is like the bigger dance of life. So yeah, that's where I'm currently, I think, wanting to place this energy and turn it and continue to develop. And for me, that actually honestly looks like with song. There's a lot of wounding in my voice. I historically have come from a place where I feel like I'm a bad singer, and I have been kind of that out of tune singer because of deep wounding. And I'm really struggling to heal that. I'm really working hard for years to heal that. And to come into a place where I can so deeply open, I can actually be really in tune with life and make beauty with my voice.
That's awesome. Do it for sure. The
Yeah.
other thing that makes me think of real quick is just also coming back to what you say in your bio about wanting to be come back and help our nervous systems regulate with the earth. And um and again, that's such a big part of what's come through. Like one of my books that I channeled is called Gaia Speaks, and it's literally about regulating again with the planet Earth, which is our body. Like our body is Earth, it just is. So, you know, anyway, there's so many layers to that, but that life force energy is the Earth. The life force energy is the stars. The life force energy is the Earth as us. So when, like, even I don't know, like I'm imagining with that sexual energy, if we're able to come back into that co-regulation and that our nervous system's really getting back into the flow, the actual literal rhythm of ourselves as beings of this planet and of the cosmos, then it's like that life force energy, which is our sexual energy, suddenly maybe possibly knows where to go and how to move. Like if we're in rhythm,
yeah,
the trees and the ground and the, you know, deep inner earth and all of that, like the life force beat, the heartbeat of the earth, then when that sexual energy moves in us, like it has a dance, it has like a sway that it has a natural rhythm. Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah.
And then maybe it's a little bit less confusing, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just another thing coming up for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I got to go in a few minutes. Maybe I can also weave in with a big endeavor right now I'm in, also with Ian. Mackenzie, is we started this school called the School of Mythopoetics. It's exactly that. It's really dedicated to actually weaving us back into the like celestial and earthly rhythms as we decolonize time. And it's really, we're a school following an astrological wheel of the year. So we work with each like sun sign as we transition into it, and the like archetypal energy radiating out. And they work mythically. We work with each new and full moon, and we also work deeply with the like earth and those rhythms in ourselves. And it's really a place, it's really a school around awakening to our own souls, and then through doing that, tending the soul of the world. It's really a place around initiation, a place of mentorship, a place of belonging. And we're really creating containership for people to be on their own initiatory journeys and be held in that and receive guidance and be out in the world in real life, but come back to this online space and have some guidance and share like notes, and have like, I feel almost like a space for the imaginal cells, you know, of humanity waking up right now to come together, similar to like this container here that you're creating, like bringing together these little beams of light that are starting to shine in this time. And that's what that is. But it's a space also for us to like be in the dark together as well. It's called the School of Mythopoetics, and it's like a thing we just launched, and we're still accepting students into the school. And it's a powerful place to go deeper in myth, in ritual, and these like rhythmic cycles as we retune ourselves as human beings.
That's awesome. I definitely want to hear more and keep in touch about that. Definitely. That's super beautiful. What's the best way for people to learn about it and connect with you?
Go to the School of Mythopoetics.com. We also have a big YouTube. We have a lot of free, amazing talks and content on YouTube, School of Mythopoetics. And me and Ian will also be releasing a film later this year, 7 years in the making, about the Tamara Eco Village. It's currently called The Sacred Matrix, and you can look that up and find it, although I think the title will change. And you can find me at johnwolfstone.com. And I do a whole slew of like ritual, mentorship, initiation work, and I work with people, and we love to connect. You know, there's other projects brewing, and you know, I just want to keep weaving, you know. Grandmother Spider calling us in, weaving you and me here, and I'm so happy to keep weaving if other people that find that inspiration to reach out.
Yeah, that's awesome. So good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Martha, as well. Blessings on this continued journey.
Absolutely. Thank you.